430 0 degrees Fahrenheit. It is the kind of cold that doesn't just sting, it changes the laws of physics. At this temperature, steel becomes as brittle as glass. Diesel fuel stops flowing and turns into a thick, useless jelly. In the Russian city of Belgorod, 40,000 people are asleep, tucked away in heated apartment blocks, unaware that their entire world is about to go dark. But in the tree line just across the border, things are heating up. A Ukrainian HIMARS unit, a high-mobility artillery rocket system, ghosts out of the shadows. They aren't here to occupy territory. They aren't here to stay. They are here to execute the ultimate ding-dong ditch, but with high explosives. In under sensor seconds, the crew dumps 6 GMLRS rockets into the freezing night sky. Before the smoke from the launch even settles, the truck is gone, vanishing back into the woods. 6 rockets are now arcing through the stratosphere, screaming toward their target at Maksan. Their destination? The Luch Power Plant, the life support system for the entire city. It doesn't just keep the lights on, it keeps the heat running. If those turbines stop spinning tonight, Belgorod doesn't just go dark, it freezes. Part E, the invisible wall, sensors, Wu Ling. Now, you might be asking, how is this possible? The Russian border is one of the most heavily defended airspaces on the planet. It is crawling with S-Scythe Tri-MF batteries and Panzer SE systems. On paper, these rockets should have been swatted out of the sky like slow-moving flies. But as the GMLRS rockets began their descent, the Russian defense network wasn't looking at them. They couldn't, because at that exact moment, the radar screens of the Russian Western Military District were having a collective seizure. Ukraine had unleashed a cocktail swarm, a masterpiece of electronic and psychological chaos designed to fry the brain of the Russian air defense. At Sensor R8M, the operator inside a Nebo M radar station watched in disbelief as his display began to multiply. 1 blip became 10, 10 became 50, 50 became a full-scale invasion force. E-byte scissor and identified bogies were appearing from every vector. Ukraine didn't just launch a blob of drones that would be a target-rich environment for a single battery. Instead, they executed a Starfish Split. From the launch sites, the swarm diverged into 4 separate groups, forcing the Russian commanders to make a series of impossible split-second choices. Part R, the Plywood ploy, Wu Ling Chi sensors, Group 1 was the bait. Sister Wu AQ400 Scythe drones banked hard left, heading north toward Moscow and strategic airfields. Let's be clear about what an AQ400 Scythe actually is. It is essentially 2 sheets of plywood, a lawnmower engine, and some basic electronics. It has the aerodynamics of a flying brick and costs less than a used Toyota. But on a radar screen, it looks like a lethal cruise missile. The Russian command panicked. They scrambled their heavy hitters. 4 Su sensor war flanker jets roared out of Voronezh airbase, their afterburners glowing blue against the black sky. The lead pilot's radar locked onto the formation. He saw what he thought were high-tech threats and did exactly what he was trained to do. He fired. He unleashed an R-Tisser-T Fu-E air-to-air missile. This is a weapon that costs roughly $1 million. It tracked the heat of the Wu Dollar Ling lawnmower engine perfectly. A massive fireball erupted in the sky. The Russians cheered over the radio. They had scored a kill, but do the math. Russia just burned a $1 million interceptor to destroy a woodworking project, and they did it 40 times. By Sister RA.M. The pride of the Russian Air Force was Winchester, totally out of ammo and low on fuel, leaving the northern sky wide open. While the jets were chasing plywood in the North Group 2, the Southern Ghost Group was making its move. This was a mix of Sanser-Bober long-range kamikaze drones and something even more low-tech, ARSers, weather balloons equipped with corner reflectors. When the Russian electronic warfare units activated their GPS jamming, the balloons began to drift erratically. To the Panzer SE crews on the ground, these drifting signals looked like hovering attack helicopters. The Russians opened up with everything. 100mm autocannons shredded the night sky with tracers. They were popping balloons, one by one, celebrating their victory. But while they were fixated on the decoys, the the Panzerbober drones flew right through the engagement zone. And even though a second line of defense eventually wiped out this group, the damage was done. The Russian Panzer crews had overheated their guns and emptied their magazines, shooting at party balloons. They would need at least Urser's minutes to reload. The southern flank was now defenseless. Then came Group 3, the most audacious maneuver of the night. Panzer War Scythe drones. But these weren't ordinary. Ukrainian engineers had strapped Luneburg lenses to their bellies, special radar reflectors that amplify a drone's signature by 100-fold. Yet suddenly, these slow-moving wooden boxes looked like a formation of heavy Su-26 bombers. The Russian commander, fearing a carpet bombing run on the city, authorized the use of the heavy S-400 batteries. Massive Jo M. Battersen missiles weighing ling pounds each and costing $1 million apiece roared off their rails. They accelerated to Mach. Cheetan vaporized the bombers. The result? Total overkill. Russia expended $1 million worth of heavy interceptors to destroy Wu-backed $1 worth of plywood. The S-Sambi S-Scythe batteries were now entering a reload cycle that takes nearly an hour. The Russian defense grid was now stretched, tricked, and completely empty. They had won every tactical skirmish, but they had lost the war for the airspace. Part U, the strike. Star sensors Strasusling directly above the Luch Power Plant. A silent corridor had opened. The 6 GMLRS rockets we saw at the beginning were now in their terminal phase. They were falling at an 90-degree angle, almost straight down. At this angle and speed, they exist in the dead zone of most radar cones. The first rocket punched through the roof of the turbine hall. Its hardened steel penetrator went through 2 feet of reinforced concrete like it was drywall. The fuse was set to a delay. It waited until it was inside the main hall before detonating. Inside that hall, 4 massive gas turbines were spinning at 10 RPM. When the blast wave hit those spinning rotors, physics took over. Even a millimeter of wobble at that speed is catastrophic. The turbines disintegrated from the inside out, sending high-speed fan blades through the facility like shrapnel. And got in this shit. The remaining 5 rockets arrived in a time-on-target salvo. They gutted the control room, ignited Ursers, Lingalons of transformer cooling oil, and ruptured the boilers. The attack lasted exactly sensor seconds. Conclusion: the frozen morning Sursis, Lingster Wuling, the Luch Power Plant, a $1 million piece of critical infrastructure, was now a bonfire. Belgorod's lights flickered once, twice, and then died. The heating pumps groaned to a halt. As the sun rose the next morning, the city didn't wake up. It just got colder. This wasn't just a bombing run, it was a strategic masterclass. Ukraine used trash to blind the world's most advanced air defense system, and once the door was open, they walked in and cut the heart out of the city's logistics. In the era of asymmetric warfare, it's not about who has the biggest missile, it's about who has the smartest plan. If you found this breakdown of modern strategy fascinating, smash that like button. Drop a comment below. Do you think this marks the end of traditional air defense? I'll see you in the next one.